What if the most disruptive electric car in the world doesn't come from Tesla, BYD, or Toyota, but from a tiny Japanese startup and costs just $7,000? This is the story of Mebot, the micro EV that's quietly rewriting the global automotive playbook. It really is an extraordinary case study in disruption, isn't it? It proves that sometimes, the biggest innovations pop up where you least expect them. What I find really fascinating is how they just dared to completely rethink what an EV needs to be rather than just tweaking existing designs. That's such a powerful point. And the origins of Kilogram Motors, they just defy all expectations. You picture like a sleek Silicon Valley lab, maybe a huge R&D center, but nope. It started in a modest shed in Nagano Prefecture, Japan. How does that even happen? How does a shed challenge the giants? It's quite the story. It began with two engineers, Takahiro Genda and Makoto Ieta. And they were frankly just fed up with all the waste they saw in traditional industries. But they were also really drawn to clean energy. They didn't jump straight into cars, though. Their first move was actually collecting discarded lithium batteries. Discard batteries? Yeah, used ones. And meticulously repurposing them to power old scooters. This was under their first company name, Keen and Green Technologies. Okay, that's bold. Everyone else back then was saying recycled batteries were weak, unreliable. But Genda and Iwata saw something different. Literally gold and garbage. How did they actually prove it worked though? What was the breakthrough that made it viable? That's where the other real genius comes in. They did exhaustive testing, super meticulous approach, and they found something pretty groundbreaking. These second life batteries, if you treated them right, processed them properly, they performed nearly as well as brand new ones. Wow! Nearly as well. Nearly. And that wasn't just a small discovery. It totally reframed what waste meant. It meant their whole future, scooters, cars, everything could be built on stuff the industry was literally throwing away. That gave them a massive cost advantage right from the start. No traditional automaker had that. It was absolutely critical. So it wasn't just about being green. It was baked into their economics from day one. Precisely. And that core idea, it just paved the way for everything else. They carefully moved from powering simple bikes then more complex motorbikes. And eventually they managed to build their very first prototype electric cars. It was this hands-on resourceful waste-not approach that led to Kilogram Motors pivoting fully into EV production in 2014. Right. So that whole philosophy built from the ground up, it was just different. And when they pivoted to EVs, that difference became this radical design philosophy. Strip everything down to what matters most. Think about that. While the big guys were stuffing in massive screens, AI gimmicks, luxury trim, Kilogram Motors went the other way, deliberately. And that contrast is so key to understanding them. If you look at what the MIBot doesn't have, it tells you a lot. No giant screens, no complex AI stuff, no fancy leather. But what it does have is simple and effective. A lightweight frame, a durable motor, and that powerful recycled battery. Their genius wasn't adding features. It was subtraction. Ruthless subtraction. They proved less could genuinely be more affordable, more useful. They even coined a term for it, essential mobility, transportation without the fluff. And that idea, maybe surprisingly, really clicked in rural Japan first. Why there? Yeah. Well, because in those places, people didn't need status symbols. They weren't after complicated, expensive tech. They just needed reliable, affordable ways to get around. Daily commute, errands, work, simple stuff. The MIBot just filled this really basic need that bigger, fancier EVs couldn't touch on price or practicality. And by 2017, they'd made some key technical leaps, too. They developed their own low-cost LFP battery design. Lithium iron phosphate. LFP, right? Safer, more stable, I heard. Exactly. Safer, more stable, and actually ideal for the second life materials they were using. Super important for keeping costs down, too. Smart. Safer, stable, cheaper. Fits the recycling model. Totally. And beyond the battery, they came up with this really clever modular EV platform. Think of it like Lego blocks for cars. This design meant they could build different vehicles, little vans, city cars, delivery pods, all using the same basic frame. Huge savings on R&D and manufacturing. Well, it's a trade-off, sure, but for their target market, the utility and affordability outweigh any limits on, say, sleek curves. And they went another step. Open source software and a really lightweight electrical system. This means local mechanics, even with just basic tools, can actually repair these things. That simplicity isn't just about manufacturing costs. It makes owning one so much easier, especially outside big cities. So, all of that led to the MIBot itself. And the price point, it just blows your mind. And the cheapest road-legal EV in the world. Get this, just $7,000. And the body made from tough composite panels and recycled aluminum, right? Which makes it light, durable, eco-friendly, and helps keep that price tag nailed to the floor. It all feeds back to that core idea. And the battery, again, it's the game changer here. Those LFP cells we talked about, they last over 3,000 full charge cycles. And crucially, they don't need complicated cooling systems. Plus, they're nearly fireproof. No thermal runaway risk, none of that battery fire stuff you sometimes hear about. And for charging, just plug it into a regular wall outlet. Takes about 4 or 5 hours. Perfect for city drivers doing less than, say, 50 kilometers a day. That makes so much sense for commuting city life. And owning one sounds simple, too. Like no oil changes, no constant software updates, no dealership hassle for basic stuff. The repair manual is just online for any mechanic. Exactly. That's key. The MIBot wasn't built to maximize profit margins or create some luxury brand image. If you look at the big picture, it was purpose-built as a solution. Affordable, real-world electric transport for a whole chunk of the market that frankly most car companies have just ignored. And that, my friends, is why the big auto giants are starting to get nervous. While Tesla's pouring billions into autopilot, and BYD is chasing luxury, Kilogram Motors just focused on simple essential stuff. But are they really threatened by a $7,000 micro car? Isn't it just a niche thing? How much does MIBot actually worry a company like Tesla aiming at a totally different buyer? That's a really good question. On the surface, yeah, different markets, but that price comparison, that's what hits home. MIBot at $7,000 is 5 times cheaper than most EVs out there. Tesla's cheapest model near $39,000. BYD Seal, $30,000. Toyota's bZ4X $42,000 plus. That kind of price gap isn't just noticeable, it's industry-breaking. For a lot of people around the world, the calculation becomes really simple. Why buy one fancy EV when you could get like 5 MIBots for your family fleet or a small business? It forces everyone to rethink what value even means in an electric car. And you can already see it happening in Japan. The MIBot actually outsold Toyota C++ within 6 months. 6 months. It now basically dominates the K-car EV segment. Those little Japanese city cars which used to be totally owned by the big household names. Absolutely. And that success in Japan is causing ripples way beyond investors. They used to chase the flashy luxury EV startups. Now they're shifting focus, putting capital into smaller, high-efficiency companies focused on affordability. We're hearing reports that part suppliers, companies loyal to Toyota and Honda for decades, have started calling Kilogram Motors. That's a huge shift in the supply chain and maybe the biggest sign. Tesla has reportedly sped up development of its $25,000 Model 2. Seems like a direct response to MIBot eating into the potential low-cost market. So, no, it's definitely not just a niche threat anymore. It's forcing the giants to react. That success at home and this growing global buzz, it's undeniable. And yeah, on paper, MIBot seems perfect for Asia. Tight roads, lower incomes, dense populations, Bangkok, Manila, Mumbai, you name it. And it's happening already, right? Kilogram Motors announced deals in 2024, exporting like 50,000 MIBots a year to Vietnam and Thailand. And that leads to another really interesting angle. MIBot's potential in rural areas. There's a model already being tested with solar charging, tougher tires, better off-road capability. Think about places where motorbikes are king right now because cars are too expensive or impractical. This could genuinely change things, offering clean, reliable transport where it's needed most. There have to be challenges, right? Storm clouds on the horizon for MIBot's global dream. Oh, definitely. The obstacles are very real. First up, battery costs, especially LFP cells, where China has a lot of control. Geopolitics, supply issues, anything there could spike prices and really hurt MIBot's main selling point. Then there's the supply chain itself. Demand is already outstripping supply by like 300% plus. That's huge. 300%. Yeah. Buyers in Japan are waiting up to 3 months. That's not sustainable for growth. Kilogram is looking hard at production in Vietnam and India to fix that, but it takes time. And then safety standards globally. MIBot as it is now probably wouldn't fly on US highways, right? Size, crash tests. And Europe has its own tricky rules for really small cars. Exactly. navigating those different safety regulations worldwide is complex and expensive. Plus, competitors are waking up fast. BYD's got their $9,000 Seagull hitting Southeast Asia hard. Honda's working on a low-cost EV. And like we said, Tesla's Model 2 is coming. That amazing $7,000 price advantage, it might not last forever as the big players jump into the space. So, facing all that, what's Kilogram Motors' plan, their counter-move? Well, their strategy seems to be adapt and open up. They're already planning a two-seater version, which adds versatility, expanding the cargo options for delivery fleets, making the platform more flexible overall. Yeah. And this is maybe the boldest and riskiest part. They're exploring a truly open-source platform, almost like an Android for EVs, letting other companies, regional partners build MIBots or vehicles based on MIBot tech tailored for their specific market. Yeah, it could create this whole global ecosystem, really democratize EV production. But the risks are huge, too. You could get poorly made knockoffs damaging the brand. Quality control becomes a nightmare. And as the market grows, people will start expecting more range, more features, challenging that minimalist core. The MIBot isn't just a car. It's a message that real innovation means accessibility, not extravagance. While the giants chase flashy tech and bigger batteries, Kilogram Motors has built something far more powerful, a movement. From Tokyo to Jakarta to Bucharest, the roads are changing. And this tiny EV might just drive the biggest shift of our generation. If you believe innovation doesn't have to be expensive, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that the mainstream auto industry doesn't want you to hear. And drop a comment below. Would you drive a $7,000 EV if it meant never paying for gas?